Hey, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's July 6th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And really, this is just a range day. We had this big rally up during the overnight, and we just went totally flat the rest of the day. And this is a clear range. Look at the EMA, how it looks like a roller coaster almost, and it's just going sideways uh, across your page. There are some short trends in here. Notice that the EMA is pointing up, but it's just within the range, and it gets to the top, and then it's pointing down. So there's enough room. It's by the end of the day, it was about a 13-point range. It started much tighter. Really, the brown trend, the brown range is the way I saw it early on, but it just kind of expanded a little bit. And that makes it a little harder to trade because notice how your lows are it's making lower lows each time. It really looked like we may turn down right in here and trade lower, but it didn't happen. We went right back to the top. We came back down, and by the end of the day, I would say the lows were a little bit lower here, but this was where we had most of the touches during the day, including the closes. So this was where I left the line at, just because it really fits the bigger picture of the day. But you can see that there's some smaller. We went into a real tight range right here. We went into another one down here, but this is after 2 o'clock, so it doesn't really matter. But when you don't have a consistent lows all the way across, or the highs were relatively consistent, you can see that it didn't change much. So it was a little easier, even though you didn't really get a lot of setups off the highs. We spent more time down here. And so this was just not a real, there's not a lot of trades today. It wasn't real easy to pick them out. You had to pretty much wait on a trap or maybe a reversal type pattern. And some of you sent me some trades you took, want to know why they failed, and they looked a little like reversals, but they weren't really true reversals, and so it's just a little harder to trade. But we'll talk about the trades, and there's one or two that where I got more than one email. I think it was right in here, so we'll talk about that one and kind of go from there. So it's not going to take long today. But anyway, I hope everybody had a great extended weekend. We're back. It is the summer. I mean, this was a pretty volatile day with a lot of volume, even though we didn't really trend very far. This is about a 13-point range, so not a very big range at all. But the market really wanted to, I mean, there's a gap. This is where the market closed on, I guess this would have been the holiday, where it closed over on Friday or whatever at noon. You can see there that was all you really had. Well, actually, there's a little more movement in there than you would think for a Friday. Most of this was during the overnight, of course. So really, from 7 o'clock to close, you really had this right here, and that's just not really tradable. So there is a little trend working down there. You might have got a trade out of it, but I just don't think it's worth risking. But we rallied strongly into this trend and just went into this range and then went sideways. So I'm going to back out. We'll talk about the trades, but I hope you had a good extended holiday weekend and that everybody's ready to go. We'll see how the rest of the summer plays out, but generally it gets kind of slow after the 4th. With all the volatility and all the craziness going on, things could change. So we'll just have to wait and see. So anyway, let's talk about the trades. Trying to back out far enough. If I get out much further, you can't see much more of the chart. I'll just have to show you. I've already shown you the big picture, so you've seen it, and then I'll back out again at the end and let you see it again, because it gets harder to see what's going on when you can't see everything. So, but at the same time, people keep asking me to back out where you can see the bars a little better, so I'm trying to do that here. But we were in the range, and early on we were at the brown channel here, and you can see we went from the lows back. We had a little failed breakout down here. You can see that right there. Went all the way to the top, came back, and we were back inside the range right there. That's all before 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock came right up in here somewhere, right up through here. And we reached the top, We tried to go higher once. We tried to go higher twice, and this actually broke higher and turned and went out the other side. This is one of those engulfing bars. This was the lower high, but no setup there. So, but no, I don't have any problem going. If yours did like this, broke higher and went out below down here, take that trade. That's a good trade. You can see it dropped pretty quickly. And this is where some of you got fooled. You had an engulfing bar on this side, but it's the first attempt, and you still got this trend line working down. We really don't have a close outside that yet, and this trades right up into it. So I know at least two or three of you went long right here on this engulfing bar. And even at that, I mean, notice that's a little bit of congestion, and you fell out of it, then you come up and you just fell out the top, and you're just right back in that congestion. So I don't have the lines there, but that's probably how I would have drawn it to begin with. You can see the highs and the lows right there. For some reason I can't get my little line straight. There we go. That's the way I would have ended it there, but originally I had it kind of like that. And you fell out this, but that's definitely congestion. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 bars stacked up there. 2 of them don't have any bodies. That's congestion. And it's just like a little range, just like you see it right there. And we fell out the bottom and come back. And so to go long here, you got to go long right into that. Plus you got the trend line working down. Plus you got the EMA right there. You don't have much room. And it just turns back down. If anything, you might have considered going short right here on a second entry short. Only problem is you're right into those lows and you don't know that it's going to go on through there. So there's just no trade here at all. And so for those of you that you just outsmarted yourself really trying, it is an engulfing bar and it looks really bullish, but that's the whole idea, and they trap you in and take it right back down. You just, if you went long there, you just got fooled basically. But there's a couple other things you could see here. One is that this trend line is still in play. 2, this is the low of the range, so you're looking for a long, but generally you want to wait on a higher low, and if you wait on a higher low, that's right here, and you know better than to go long right there. So if you just wait on that higher low, generally you're probably going to be better off. Maybe if there's no congestion here and this is smaller with more room back to the EMA and the trend line, maybe you take that. But under this circumstance, it's just a little trading range. We just went from a bigger range to a tighter range, and you had a failed break out the low, failed break out the high, and then it kind of pushed on lower. A little breakout, a little second entry short on a breakout pullback there. Broke out, pulls back, tests it. So it drops on down. And you got a nice bullish bar there, but since that's you do have some former support over there, but there's not enough support over here, and that is the previous resistance, as you can see there too. So that one is pretty tempting. I mean, you could argue for that one to be green, really, if you want to be aggressive. But the problem is you do have a little close outside your trend line by this time too, and you got a new low. But the problem is we haven't bounced here that much, but there's a lot more evidence to go long here than there would be to go long here. And this is a more reasonable bar with room back to the EMA. So you might go long, but I think you're better off to wait on the higher low, which comes here, right back at the support resistance line. And your signal bar is not very good, but it pushes through, pulls back, gives you a failed second entry short, bounces right off the support, right off the EMA. That too is congestive, but it's a little break lower, and it is off the trend line going up. You get a little higher low right here, so if you waited on this one, you might have been better off. I still like this one just because you got that failed second entry short. You're back inside, and you did come back and test it once, twice, so you got at least a double test of the support right there. And that's a nice, that's as good a bullish bar as you get. It opens, trades down, then moves back up and closes on its high. So I like going long right there. And if you didn't enter there, definitely, I definitely would have entered right there. And then off it goes. And it runs right back up here to the top. And you get a little failed breakout. Of course, I moved this line up later, which is the blue one. But at this point, this was still. So you get a failed breakout. That is, look at the size. How big is that bar? I'm really curious. That bar is 21 ticks. So that's a huge bar. That's a really huge bar. And even though you're a long way away, it is a failed breakout. I'd wait on the lower high, which comes here, and by that time, look, and you have to understand there's usually a reason this congestion forms, and the reason here is that prices have just gotten too far away from the EMA. If you really understand what's going on with congestion, it's probably okay to trade it if you get a good setup. But most people don't understand what's going on with congestion. And what's happened, the reason you went into congestion here is you're stuck between the highs of the range, which was really here. We kind of failed out the top, and prices are wanting to come back to the EMA, but the buying just hadn't subsided yet. But they can't get it through that resistance, and it just hadn't weakened enough to come back yet. But the odds are it's going to come back to the EMA. It could break out the high side and fail and come back, and that's the problem. So you still have to be careful trading it, and you're better off just to skip that stuff. So even if you can read it, a lot of times you're better off. And you just don't get a setup all the way down here. Notice there's another lower high here, but it never breaks. You just go into congestion right there on this side, and it could go higher. So you're better off just to leave this one alone. And then you finally get a little second entry here, but guess what? You just came off the lows. You can see we bounced there once, twice. Now this is the third time, and that's another one you could argue for it to be green, just like you could that one. But again, I think you're better off to wait on the higher low, which comes here, and that signal bar is terrible. So it runs up, and you don't want to go long right here. Right, this fails, so it looks a little like a reversal pattern, but a reversal pattern, you want it to push through the EMA, pull back and test it and find support on the high side, and you don't get that here. This just breaks lower, turns and goes out the upper side and traps people out and then turns back down. It's just a long trap is what it really is, and it's just a little failed break above that double top. So I know at least one person, I think this is where they went long, and they saw that engulfing bar and they took it and just got trapped, and they got stopped out, and then it fails out the bottom. We're still making lower highs and lower lows here, so I don't see any reason to try to go long there until it pushes back up. You get a first entry, a second entry, and even this failed second entry short, I'm not crazy about. You can tell it trapped a lot of people by how it rockets up. But I marked this one because it's back at the support resistance, and this would probably be right here at that point. You get more touches and more closes right there now. And so it's back at the support area of the range, and it's a failed second entry short, and you got a little room back to the EMA. It doesn't matter here. And at least one person asked me about that. They said, I saw some trades, but they were right into the EMA. And if it's a range day and it's working across here like that, notice the lower highs. That's still some reason to be concerned. But sometimes, especially the tighter ranges, you're going to have to go long or short through the EMA, or you're not going to get a trade. It's just on a range day, that's just the way it is. It's something to be concerned about, don't get me wrong, but it's just part of it sometimes on a range. And here's another one. Notice we rocketed up, and we finally pushed through here, and we pull back, and we get we made that low. We test it once, we test it twice, and look how bullish that bar is. If you hadn't have already broken out right there, I'd say there's no way you'd even consider that. But the fact that you already pushed through, if it breaks higher again, there's a good chance it could take off. So I marked it green still because it is aggressive, because you're still going long into that resistance, although we've kind of pushed through there and probably cleaned out a lot of that already. You can tell by how fast it rockets back in here that we cleaned out a lot of those sell stops up there. And then boom, it takes off. And this runs on up, and then we just kind of weakly, don't even trade that. It's still making higher highs and higher lows, but I don't see any reason to trade that. If you had a really good setup in here that got you short, I mean, you can kind of see the little support right there. It just kind of keeps jumping up and down, up a little higher each time on support, and you can kind of see that support resistance, I'd probably call it right there. If you got a little bitty tiny buy right here, with that being the first break and no new high, you may go long on something like that, but I don't see anything there. It's just not worth fooling with. Look at it again. But notice what happens here. We finally get to the highs. We make a little failed breakout. We try to go higher once. We try to go higher twice, and you got enough room. It's almost the exact opposite of this right here. Same thing almost, except it's on the other side. And look at it go. And you get a break, a new low. You try to go lower again. And this is just a higher low. The problem is here is that you're not back down to the support yet. And so it's a little risky. However, we try to go lower once, twice, 3, 4 times. Then we make a higher high and a higher low, and you still got room. We're probably at least going back to the EMA. And instead it runs back up here and tests that resistance. And we just go into another tighter range here. Comes back down. This would have been a place to consider going long. Not a very good signal bar on mine. If you had a good signal bar, you could go long right there. And it runs back up. You fail out the top. It gives you a lower high and a decent signal bar. I like that for a short. Comes back up. You don't, gives you that third try, but you don't get a setup. There's a lower high here, but you don't have much room, and it's just kind of right in the middle. I'd skip that one. And you actually get a failed second entry long right here, but you got to, it breaks higher and turns down, but you got to go short right into the lows. It works, but next time you do it, it won't. And you'll wish you'd have followed the rules. We get a failed breakout, runs back up, comes back down, and it just takes us into 2 o'clock. There's just nothing else there. If you had a good signal bar here, you may go long again on a green one. A little aggressive, but you're better off to wait on the higher low, which I got one right here. Actually, I had a couple of them here, but none of them are very good signal bars. So generally that's, you're glad because it keeps you out of a losing trade. But if you'd have got a good signal bar right there on that second entry, that would have been a decent trade going into the 2 o'clock hour. But so if you had one there on the second entry, you might take that. But we'll back out, and there it is again. Just not a lot of trades. I like range days. They're generally really easy trading days. This one's not so easy. And some of you, I had at least a couple people send me an email and said, hey, I hadn't seen any trades. They're here. There's just not many of them. They're not, it's just not a smooth trading day. It's one of those days. If you can consistently turn right across here at the same place every time, it makes it easy, just like right here. But when you make a little lower, then a higher, then a lower, another low, and then lower, even lower here, even lower here, and then you come back down, now you're making higher lows. They're not consistent at the same places. You got to get consistent touches to be able to trust it, and that's the problem. You don't get it. So it definitely makes it a little harder to trade. So if you struggled today or couldn't find a lot of trades, there's not a lot of ones to begin with. I marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are blue or red. And of course the green ones are possibilities, but they're very aggressive and most people are better off leaving them alone. So if you count those, 7, 8, 9, there's 10 trades. And I generally don't count those and as the trades that most of you are going to want to take, or most of us, I should say. So anyway, I believe that's going to do it today. If I wrap it up here, we'll be done in 20 minutes. So I'm gonna stop early because I'm still a little bit behind from being gone. Thank you for holding your emails and so forth. But I'm going to wrap it up. we'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get a little better day tomorrow. But I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.